Welcome to the Vetiver Vibes podcast. We're your hosts, Nikki Frazier and Rachel Dean, certified clinical aromatherapists. We are excited to have you here on today's episode where you know that you'll get the best essential oil scoop.
This episode is brought to you by Essentria, a leading online school for aromatherapy. If you want to learn more about how to become a clinical aromatherapist, check out the courses at www.schoolofessentria.com.
Welcome to this week's episode of Vetiver Vibes. Nikki Frazier here with Kate Matheson. Kate is a business coach for health and wellness practitioners, clinic owner, passionate advocate of health, and longtime entrepreneur, having built 6 businesses over the past 13 years. She has spent the last 7 years helping practitioners build their own consistent, fully booked practices without waiting years, sacrificing their quality of care, or burning out on marketing. Kate is here to help put the right foundation in place, the things your schools never taught, so you can snowball your growth in a way that gets both busier and easier every month. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's so fun to hear my bio. I never really hear someone else reading it. That just brought a smile to my face.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it's true where you say that so many schools don't teach actually how to get bodies into the seats. That was one of the reasons why when we opened Essentria, we wanted to have a business component. Now, it isn't super detailed. We do have a small little business foundation course just for proper foundation, but it is one of the hardest things. And it is a whole course in and of itself is how to get those bodies in the seats. Because a lot of people just think that so anyway, so we will be diving all into that today. Before we get started, we always like to ask every single one of our guests, what is your favorite essential oil?
Yeah. Like we were kind of just briefly chatting before, I am sensitive. I'm a sensitive gal, so I can't handle anything too strong. So I tend to go for very simple things. Eucalyptus is my go-to clean scent. And then I clean with citrus a lot. Grapefruit is another go-to in all my cleaning supplies. So just very, very simple. I wish I could have more.
Yeah. No, those are great. And those are really, really nice ones. The eucalyptus, just being cautious with, I know you have a little one at home, but the grapefruit one I love absolutely for cleaning and energizing and focus. And those are great ones. And sensitivity is a big thing too. Absolutely. Less is more. And that's what we always like to remind people. All right. So diving into today. So I'd love to know, how did you get to where you're at now? I know you mentioned quickly in your bio, you've helped build 7 businesses.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of get to be this great expert in, where you are today?
Yeah. And specifically working with health practitioners, it's kind of, a bob and weave sort of journey, as I'm sure it is also for many of the people in your community. It's you didn't start just getting into essential oils. But I did grow up in an entrepreneurial family. Literally every single one of my parents and immediate siblings were entrepreneurs. We have all multiple businesses. And so it's just kind of been in my nature. I studied finance and small business strategy in university. So it's literally been something I've been doing for 20 years plus. I think my first business, not counted in these real businesses, but was at 16. And so I just always knew it was something I was interested in. And when I was running kind of my first real business, which was in real estate, I was working a lot. I had that business. I was building an online meal planning subscription service. And I also did project management. I was working 80 hours a week. And the thing is, I also have an autoimmune disease that I've been managing basically completely naturally since I was 18, so a very long time now. But the body can only handle so much. So I was working 3 businesses. I was working all the time in a very stressful environment in real estate. And I burnt out. My body literally snapped and said no. And I got really, really sick. I had to shut down 2 of my businesses. And I just always find there's nothing like a health tragedy, health scare, health situation that brings things into focus. And you start to really realize what's important and what's kind of just fluff. And so I got super productive. I went from working like 80 hours a week to 20 hours a week. A lot of the strategies, honestly, that I teach clinicians today, like came from that time even. And I got really, really busy, but I was still just sort of feeling like, what am I doing with my life? Like not super satisfied selling very high-end real estate to just like, I don't even know, upper middle class millennials. It just didn't feel super satisfying. But my husband's a chiropractor and he was finishing up chiropractic school. And I obviously was managing my health with seeing a lot of different practitioners. And the same conversations kept coming up with them of like, my massage therapist told me I was her only massage one week. She was earning $100 that week. And I was thinking like, how is this possible that you're taking all of these courses and then you're thrown into being your own business and you don't really know that side of it. And all of them would say like, oh yeah, I'm going to do social media, or I'm going to, like people are going to, word of mouth is going to build. And I was like, but it just like doesn't really work like that. And what do you mean by social media? And so I started kind of helping people on the side. And it started to grow. Like I would go into gyms and yoga studios and things like that and do sales trainings. And then we moved to China and I moved my business online and created an online program. And the rest is really history. That was like 6.5 years ago, I think. Yeah. So I've been working with practitioners and I just love helping a community that's given me so much to work and earn in a way you deserve and not feeling just this constant hustle, constant grind. And like, did I make a mistake getting into this business? Because you absolutely did not.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many things. One ring true. Because I know and myself included, that I wasn't 100% in the mind frame of, okay, I know once I graduate and like I put myself out there, like, bam, I'm just going to have all these bodies on my table. I'm going to be doing consultations like every day. And I'm like, no, I know I know it takes time. But I was not prepared for the amount of time and energy that I had to put into my personal practice, where I'm like, this is a lot. And you are putting in 80, 100 hour easily a week of trying to network, trying to do the marketing, creating the social media posts, email marketing, like all of
you're
these
wearing
things.
all the hats, right?
Yeah. And at the beginning, I find a lot of people just marketing to everybody. If I market to everybody, everybody's going to come to me, which is not something we should do. Do you want to talk a little bit about that maybe?
Yeah, sure. It's one of the things that I like most professionals to kind of start with. Like you talked about some of the foundations that you teach. To me, that is like a foundation is, you've probably heard the word niching or focus, but we just want a way for you to stand out a little bit from all the other people doing what you do and connect with the people you actually want to work with. And so I think it's really important that there is this idea that, yeah, if I speak to everyone, I won't pigeonhole myself. I'll draw from a wider base and get more clients. But you end up with language, because really language and communication, whether it's written or spoken, is how we market, right? It is all through language. Our language becomes really general. It becomes really vague. And you start saying things that maybe sound good, but they just like almost are in one ear out the other, or zoom past people when they're scrolling. They don't actually capture. And so when we start to niche or focus, you start to go from speaking to everyone to speaking to one person. And when you can speak to one person, that's when you start to actually connect in a way where they're like, oh my gosh, that sounds so much like me. Oh my gosh, that resonates. Oh my gosh, that sounds like something I need. Oh, I've been looking for that. These are the things you want people to be saying, right? And actually, I can't tell you how often I'll have like clients change their websites and they'll literally get people saying those things like, oh my God, I felt like you were speaking to me, or your website really resonated. That's what we want. And that is what niching does. I think sometimes people get scared that that's like all they're ever going to do, or they're going to get bored only seeing this one thing. Just because your marketing is focused on speaking to one type of person and maybe one type of complaint doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're going to see. It's just what you're going to start attracting. And then other stuff kind of comes out of the woodwork. Is that what you found too, Nikki?
Yeah, it is. And it's funny because like I worked a lot with pregnancy, not
Mm,
necessarily young moms, but just new moms, new parents. And that was kind of my specialty. That's what I wanted
mhm.
after 4 pregnancies,
Yeah.
um, all of that. I was like, that was my passion. And that doesn't mean that's all I see. I see a
Yeah.
lot of elderly. I see
Mhm.
men. I see, like people who are going through menopause. I see
Yeah.
all kinds of people, but because they're like, oh, great, you're in my area. I don't care if you
Mhm.
work specifically with pregnant
Yes.
people and young children, things like that. You're in my area, you're great. So I'm just going to go see you. Which again,
Mhm.
I'm never going to turn someone down if as
Yeah.
long as there's a good click there. But it's just my messaging is mostly towards that. And I find your
100%.
messaging can also change. Like actually right now I'm slowly looking at shifting from
Mhm.
pregnancy to almost more of like a perimenopause, menopause,
Ah,
just
yeah.
women's health in general is kind of
Mhm.
what I've been humming and hawing over the last few months
Yeah, I
because
love that.
that's more so where I'm at in my life too, where as much as I still will always niche down to pregnancy and love pregnancy, but I'm more clients now are just generalized women health. And I think because those clients started with me when they were pregnant and now we've
Yeah,
been
of
growing
course.
together, that that's kind of where it's at. But it's as soon as you get that wording, it was like, oh, that's me. And that when I'm looking for a practitioner, that's what I'm looking for. Of like,
Of
yes,
course.
that's me. Okay, you can help
Yes.
me.
Yes. Everyone's got like, for better or for worse, we're very much into our own worlds. We're thinking about ourselves, but especially when you're going through something in your health and you're looking for support with it, whether it's your health or your wellness, you've got something in your own mind that you're looking for. And when you see that on a web page or you hear that on a podcast or whatever it might be, you see someone sign and it answers the problem and the questions that you've been having, then you're like, oh, okay, I've found my answer. It's not more
Yeah.
complicated than that. So we really just want to speak to that. But yeah, 100%, your messaging can change, your business can change. I think sometimes we get really almost halted because we're like, oh my gosh, I've got to think of something that's going to stand the test of time and I'm never going to change it. And it's going to be the only thing I ever do for the rest of, my practice. No, it can change as much as you want. And to be honest, I actually like teaching niching in a way, specifically for practitioners, because I do think that there is variation in what you see that doesn't necessarily just have you doing one thing. Like for you maybe have this brand level niche that's women's health, but then within it, you might have a few kind of like sub niches or core areas that might be menopause and perimenopause. Maybe it is fertility and, pregnancy, things like that, gut health. Like you can have a few different core areas within a brand niche so that you can speak to them and kind of weave like throughout without having one thing. I think that is also the
Yeah.
beauty of health and wellness is everything's also very connected.
I was just gonna say that, like the body is connected and your lifespan
Mhm.
is connected. And so a lot of
Yeah.
times you can kind of connect depending on what your business is, what your
Yeah.
modality is, but a lot of the times they can be connected in some way or another.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So yeah, so niche important to have that
Super,
focus.
super.
What else would you say would be like another easy but big thing that you often see people are kind of maybe missing the mark a little bit and they can start to kind of implement?
This is like, I'm going to say, this is something that's business related, but it's not necessarily like go on to Google and do this, but it is your mindset. Like, Nikki, I don't know if this is going to resonate, but like, entrepreneurship is a trip. Like it is the biggest sort of personal development lesson you will ever go on. And I always tell people like gear up for it because it's a
Mhm.
lot. And if you've got, which we all do, like self-doubts and limiting beliefs and just like blocks and existential questions, like if you don't have tools to support you with that, they will halt you and they will slow you down, right? I think cultivating a strong mindset is so, so important. Otherwise, when it gets hard, when things get challenging, when things get slow, you will quit. And I think if you have that strong mindset, you can then move past it and you can understand, okay, my mind's a little bit uncomfortable with this, it's new, but I'm going to do it anyway, rather than spiraling and stopping or having this start stop game. Because the more I think the stronger your mindset, the more you're going to do things that make you uncomfortable, which then lets them become comfortable, which then allows you to become consistent with them, and you're just going to make it work. And when you're new, this is like one of the tricks I've found for myself. When you're new, you're sort of like in limbo between two worlds, right? You're in whatever you were doing before, and then you're kind of starting to be in this. If that is the case for any of you listening, start to identify with your new path, right? So if you were, I don't even know, in corporate before, and now you are going into aromatherapy, and maybe you're incorporating reflexology, and people ask you what you do, say, I'm a reflexologist, I'm an aromatherapist, I am these things, rather than, oh, I'm in, banking and I'm doing this, but I'm also doing this kind of on the side. Right? I think sometimes we have this like mindset of, oh, I'm gonna just try it. Let's see how it goes. Ooh, what if it doesn't work? It's a hobby that I put a lot of money into, a lot of time and investment into. But yeah, I think a no plan B attitude, and you start to embrace this new identity, it does wonders for your mindset to say like, okay, this is what I'm doing now. Not this is what I'm trying. This is what I'm doing now. I am this. I do these things. And of course, supporting your mindset in other ways is really, really important. But I do think supporting yourself by starting to identify with this new version of you, it was very important for me when I was like transitioning, saying I stopped saying I was in real estate and started saying that I was a business coach. It was weird, but it really helped me mentally make that transition to say, okay, I've got no plan B. This is my path now. And we can chat about other business strategy stuff for the rest of the time, but I really think that there's like no amount of strategy that I can give that will beat out a poor mindset. You cannot outwork a bad mindset. I don't know if that resonates with you at all, but I just
it totally does. Yeah. And I think every training that I do, there's always a mindset component for several reasons, but it is you need to embrace who you, first of all, the aspect that you were mentioning early on is like you have to be prepared for a roller coaster. Your life and your emotions are going to be a roller coaster. As an entrepreneur, some days you are going to rock it. You will be busy. You will have client after client after client. And it's like, woo, smooth sailing.
Yeah, you just feel so confident, right?
Yeah. And then 2 days later, crash. No emails, no new bookings, no nothing. And then 2 days later again, bam, you're booked up the entire next week. Yeah. So it is a roller coaster, and you do need to mentally prepare yourself for that. So if you are not someone who is good with that, start working on those tools. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what you said of like just embracing who you want to be I agree, is so, so important. And one of the activities that I've often done is, who are you going to be in 5 years? Write that person down. So in 5 years, I'm going to be when even my dad actually a few months ago, he was like, because I used to always work in the school board. My corporate job was I was a child and youth care work in the school board system. And so, but when I left that, he's like, what do you do? And like, it was a few months ago, he's like, so when people ask me, what do you do? I don't know what to say. What is your job now? I'm like, I'm a holistic health practitioner. He's like, oh. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it's easy. I'm like, just a holistic health practitioner. I do. And then I explain what modalities I use, but I'm like, that's my title. Yeah. And so you have to use the title that you want. So, and then describe yourself in 5 years. What are you making? What does your day look like? Are you working 10-hour days? Are you working 4-hour days? Where is your office? What is your booking like? If you have a family, what does that family time look like? And start to embody that 5 years from now, today, though. And I found when I did that, it was like huge shift. And I started doing that years ago. And I still probably do that activity at least once a year. I'm like, okay, great. Because it just puts me back in that mind frame, because we all slip out of the mind frame. And then we need to slip back into the mind frame of like, okay, no, like we got this. Let's pull up our big girl panties and get back into this how we want to
Yeah.
and keep going. And so I do that activity probably once a year, and it's a great refresher for my mind of like, yeah, I know where I'm going. And then I can go back. Actually, I have found some of my previous ones and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing that. Yeah,
No,
that
that's
is
what I'm just
reality for me now. I'm like,
yeah.
yay.
Before you know it, you'll start to realize, like, oh, this is like exactly what I wish for. But oftentimes I find we're so quick to like go to the next thing that sometimes we don't even realize we're living the life that we like once were pining for, you know? But those types of activities really help with that, I think.
Yeah, and it celebrating the wins. Like we
So
don't
important.
celebrate our own wins. We don't. And that's where like Rachel and I, the other co-founder of Essentria, each time we get a new student, we actually do a little happy dance and we send each
Yes.
other little happy pictures because we celebrate it every single time a student purchases anything from us. Because it's
Yeah.
if you don't put in the energy
I was just, yeah.
into something that is exciting, into something that you're building, then what energy are you going to get back? Like if you're giving
Mhm.
nothing, you're going to get nothing back. If you throw in 110% of your energy of excitement and that aspect, then that's what you're going to attract to. It's that whole,
Yeah.
like attract like
A
aspect.
100%, 100%. And I really think when it goes back to the mindset on the flip side, it's like when you're focusing so much on what's not working and that you can't do it and it's so slow, like what do you think you're going to get more of, right? It creates inaction, it creates overwhelm. And so, yeah, all the things that support your mindset, whether it's future visioning, whether it's having a support system, whether I honestly love hypnotherapy, like breath work, anything that supports the mindset is something that every entrepreneur needs, whether it's morning routine, evening routine. This is stuff that will carry you so far. And then you can add on the strategy and the work, and it will actually work, right?
Yes. Yes, I agree. And it's like I'm trained in hypnotherapy, mindfulness, meditation, all of that stuff. And it makes such a difference. And it's funny because myself, even though I'm trained in it, I go through long spells where I stop meditating daily and I
Yeah.
notice a difference in my energy,
Mhm.
in my business, in everything that I'm doing to then when I go back into doing like when I was at like my peak of stuff. I was meditating every morning and every night. I would fall
Yeah.
asleep to my meditation. Now, that was more so when I was pregnant because my nighttime meditation was for pregnancy related. And
Oh,
my
cool.
morning one was for business, energy, just starting my
Yeah.
day on the right foot.
Mhm.
But I was like, I don't want to say at my best because I'm great now, but it was like everything
Oh,
was
yeah.
just so, all the
Dialed
blocks were in
in.
place. Yeah,
Yeah.
it dialed in. That's
Yeah.
the perfect word for it. So
I
it does
totally
make a
agree.
difference.
Yeah. And so I just think it's like I I teach strategy, I teach business, I teach marketing and messaging and all of these things, but I just always see the clinicians who and practitioners who do the best, they also have this really winning mindset, right? They're celebrating their wins, they're in a community, they have a strong like mindfulness practice. And so that to me is like foundational. You do the niche, you got the mindset, you've got a strategy. And then you touched also on something of the messaging, right? Of like, what do you say when people ask you what you do? It's like once you have a niche and a brand kind of, you need to figure out how to articulate that. And I find that that is like the hardest piece for so many. But once you get it, is like the game changer, right? Of like
Hmm.
explaining what you do in a way that is succinct but clear and not too, you know, practitionery and like wellnessy in your own world, but really tells people like how you can help them so that when your dad is saying she's a holistic health practitioner who helps, like pregnant and prenatal women to experience better pregnancies. I'm just making this up, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like you're saying it and there's like, oh, okay, yes, I see how someone could work with, like when someone could work with her.
Yeah. And I remember because I went through your program. That's how we
Yeah.
originally were connected. And I remember when I went through your program, that was one of the activities was you need to nail down your messaging. It was like one
Mhm.
to two sentences. Who are you? When someone asks you what you do, you need to be able to say it without thinking about it. And you're
Mhm.
not stumbling. Be confident when you say it also. Because if you start humming and hawing, then
Yeah.
people are going to say, is that really what you do? Like, are you
Yeah.
sure that's what you do? Because you're not really messaging, like your message isn't giving a lot of confidence in that. So you need,
Mhm.
and like practice it, get like all of
Yeah.
those things. So yeah, messaging is important to, and it doesn't have to be complex. Just,
No.
1 to 2 sentences of what is it that you do and narrow it down to simple language that everyone can understand when you're talking to them.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase like clarity over cuteness or clarity over complexity. I like both because I think sometimes we think like, oh, it has to sound really amazing. It's got to be really cute and like clever. No, it's got to be clear. Clear, simple, in simple terms and tangible. People don't want to hear like, oh, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to live my best life. I'm going to be empowered to do something. Like, it's lovely. Those are amazing outcomes. But really, people want to hear what are the tangible things that I'm getting out of this? I'm going to feel more
Yeah.
relaxed. I'm going to feel more clear. Like, I'm going to, feel less bloated, like whatever the symptoms might be that they're experiencing. And so your message just has to say that in the clearest terms possible, which is often not cute. It's just regular,
Yeah.
regular.
We're gonna go with the KISS method, right?
Yeah,
Keep it
exactly.
simple, silly. I'm switching the last S to silly. But just keep it simple. It's always the best thing. And people don't start questioning of like, is that like feel your best? What is your best? I don't know what it's
Yeah.
someone who's chronically ill, they don't know what their best is, honestly. So how can they know what their best is going to be? Like if they're seeing a message of feel your best and they don't know what that is, then they're not going to
No.
understand the message and it's not going to click for them like it would
Well,
if
yeah, it's just they don't think it's for them.
no. Versus someone who it's like, you feel less bloated, like you said earlier, because
Yeah.
they might have a lot of digestive issues, IBS,
Mhm.
Crohn's. Digestive
Yeah.
is like huge industry of helping people with gut health, and go
Mhm.
go directly to what is the problem,
Mhm.
not,
Yeah.
let's get
And
your tummy feeling its best. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty, simple though, of what is it?
yeah, exactly. I was actually just helping a nutritionist before this call with gut health thing. And she was saying a lot of this, like what she does as well. She was talking a lot about the tools that she uses and the functional testing and customized nutrition plans and a lot of how she helps, which is great. But then I was like, well, who are you actually helping? Like who's coming to you and when are they coming? She's like, oh, well, I pretty much only deal with chronic conditions where naturopaths refer me because they think that they need a nutritional element to their care. I'm like, well, just put
Okay.
that on your website. Like, what's the situation that people are in? So it can be clear, but sometimes when you're in it, you only see it from your lens, right? Your
Yeah.
practitioner lens. But doing some of these kinds of exercises, messaging help before you get into practice
Yeah.
is very helpful, right? Before you're like, okay, day one, I need some clients. It's nice to have some of these like foundational things
Yeah.
locked and loaded.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've gone over a few great things already. Would there be like one other aspect that you see, maybe like the marketing itself, just because like social media is a
Yeah.
huge thing. Social media, it's to me, it's a thorn in my side. I have a love-hate relationship with social media, which I think a lot of people do. When I talk to people, they're like, yes, same way. Do you have any words of wisdom when it comes to the marketing aspect?
So do you want us to specifically talk marketing or specifically talk social media or
Maybe social, maybe we'll bring it down to social media.
okay. Yeah, honestly, I social media, I could go on and on about it
Mhm.
because I think it is so talked about and it is so pervasive, right? It's everywhere. It's literally ingrained into us that it is ingrained into us that it is a better social strategy or a better marketing strategy than any others out there, right? It is like baseline for everyone. And I have so
Mm.
many people that tell me, like, oh, I've got to be on social more. I've got to do this. I'm like, do you? Social media is a marketing strategy like any other marketing. I give it equal weight, if not sometimes less weight than others, because it actually can work much less than other marketing strategies out there. That said, it can also be amazing. I have some clients who get all of their people from social media. So I think what you have to look at as an individual when you're thinking about marketing in general, but also social media, is, do you like it? Or is this something that you absolutely hate? Do you have your own presence, like personal profile? Or are you starting a profile from scratch? You've never looked at Instagram, which I also was working with someone before or earlier today on this. Social media, if it's brand new to you and you don't like it, it's not going to work for you like it does someone who's kind of into it, right? Maybe even like you, who has the love hate, but like, you're like, I'm okay putting my face on there. I kind of like doing stories. Like, I don't mind it. That person is going to do so much better with social as a marketing strategy than the person who doesn't really want to be there. So I really think that you have to get clear on, like, realistically, how do you want to approach social media and what are you expecting out of it? I actually think there's sort of like 4 levels of strategy. Like, one level being you basically post like once a month so that your business looks like it's still open, but obviously you're not going to get a lot from it, all the way up to like level 4 where you're on there like almost every day, you're DMing people behind the scenes, you're doing reels, you got everything. So you just have to kind of figure out where you want to be. And if you're on the low end, you just have to decide, what are going to be the other marketing strategies I have to get myself out there and fill it in. So I think social is great. You have to be clear what do I want to put into it, and you're going to get an equal amount back out of it. Just like you were saying, the energy you put in. So if you want to post once a month, it's not going to be your main marketing strategy. And I think sometimes that is where people get disappointed, where they're like, I've got no audience. I don't really like it. I'm posting, 1 or 2 times a week, but I'm expecting to get tons of patients from it. So that clarity is helpful. Setting clear expectations.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so true. Like my own personal business, I actually stopped using social media. I want to say probably like 2 years ago. Like I go onto my own personal Instagram and there's nothing, probably about at least 2 years, if not even longer at this point. And I just do it through, like, we have small local Facebook groups in my area. And honestly, I'll just post there because it's people who are within my neighborhood, and I use the word neighborhood loosely. Like it's still a good 10-minute drive around my house. But like it's people within my area that are more likely than the people who are following me that aren't even in my country and who aren't going to come for a reflexology appointment to see me when they're not even within driving distance to me.
Yes. Yeah.
So I found, like, and I was just between my personal business and the school, I'm like, I can't do both. So my personal, I was like, and I didn't need it. Actually following the steps that I did through your thing, I was able to get the amount of bookings that I wanted and that I could fit into my schedule with all the other things going on in my life. I was like, this is the number of patients that are of people that I want to see every week. And once I hit that goal, fantastic. Like that's all I care about.
Yeah. And you don't need to do so much extra. So and that you touched on something so good there too. If you're a brick and mortar, you're a local business, you want to make sure that you're connecting with local people as much as possible. And so sometimes that can get diluted on social media. Of course, there's ways to do it using local hashtags and making sure your content is very community specific, right? Where it really feels like you're talking to your community. But I think that there are lots of marketing strategies that can be more localized that are better. But this is also where your messaging comes into play as well, that you want your messaging that you've created to be infused into your social content so that the same rules apply. You're not just focusing on how you help, right? Oh, you're going to eat this, you're going to, do this meditation, I'm going to use these, tools on you. You want to really focus on like the problem that they're experiencing, because the solution is you helping them, not them getting the content, sometimes getting the content. But I see a lot of content that's really focused on providing solutions, thinking that's the only way to provide value. But really focusing on where they're at in your social content will help with your social content as well, because people will be attracted to it more. But if social's not your thing, like I really like allow this to be permission for you to not feel like it has to be a main strategy. It really can be as long as you compensate somewhere else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So now I'm just thinking, I know a lot of listeners who are maybe thinking, if I don't use social media, what
Mm,
is something else that I could use? So
yeah.
what would be like one other thing that isn't social media that people could use for marketing?
Mhm. So I love local Facebook groups, but I think also is other people's communities. We so
Mhm.
often are trying to build things on our own by ourselves. Tap into other people's communities. So whether that's doing like collaborations, whether that's doing a little workshop in someone else's community, whether it's like going into a yoga studio to like do a collaboration with a yoga teacher or something, but like join forces, build professional connections, because they'll start to do the work for you so that you're not just like building this community on your own. It's a great way to
Yeah.
start.
Absolutely. And I find that's where, going to networking events
Yeah.
can be really great. I have made some amazing friends. I call them my colleagues, even though we don't work together, but or like just, like networking friends of we've seen each other so many times at different networking events. And then when it's the word of mouth referrals that we'll get, but then at times then we're collaborating on things together.
Yeah.
And so her audience becomes my audience becomes her audience for something that's kind of specific. And it just kind of you just support each other that way and growing that way, getting your name out a different way
Yeah.
that way.
That
Absolutely.
is the best way, in my opinion, especially if you have no budget, you have no audience yourself, no client base, you're just starting out. Like, don't try and do it all yourself. Go meet other people, and you never know what the opportunities will bring, whether it's referrals, whether it's collaborations, whether it's
Yeah.
honestly even like getting on this podcast. Like, you just connect and you never really know what it's going to turn into. But when you can get into other people's audiences, you're going to build with more momentum than like slogging away trying to gain one follower at a time yourself.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, so I know I mentioned a few times your program. Do you want to talk a
Yeah.
little bit about your program? So, because I know you have a program, it's called Booked Up Blueprint. I went
Yeah.
through it myself a few years ago now at this
Yeah. I was going to
point,
say a
and
number of years ago.
yeah, and I still go back into it every now and then, being like, okay, what is this again? What is that again? And I've been in my own professional holistic practice for
Mhm.
a few years now, but it's those reminders that it's easy to slip out of habit of things, and then it's like, oh right, I used to do that, let's get back into that habit. So popping back in every now and then looking at things, but so yeah, so can you talk a little bit about your program and how
Yeah.
that kind of helps?
Yeah. So I have a program, Booked Up Blueprint. It's an online program. It's specifically for health and wellness practitioners, whether you're just starting out or you've been practicing a few years, but it's really for those who want to fill their schedules, right? It is about getting booked up, whatever booked up looks like for you, right? Whether it's full time, part time, whatever that might be, and helping you do it in I think, a speedier timeline than if you're just out there trying to figure it out on your own because you don't know. This is not what you learned. So you can really follow a step by step plan. So, really, some of the stuff we've talked about today, helping you clarify here's my strategy, here is step by step what I'm going to be creating based on my vision and based on my data. Then we go into your messaging, which is a huge piece. It's, I think, transformative, where you get templates and you get the questions so that you can start to put it into some of these little phrases, like we were talking, these short little phrases that you can put into your website, your marketing, your language. And then it goes into what I call systems, the sales systems that actually get people in and keep them in, right? So that you're not just revolving door, you're actually retaining. So we've got systems for marketing, whether it be social media, ads, workshops, whether it be collaborations or referrals. We've got systems for retention, which could be anything from creating a program. I think sometimes people think like, oh, I want to create a program. How does that fit into seeing? That's actually an amazing retention system because you're just building in retention. So we create retention systems, whether it be programs or just rebooking people, there's all kinds of things. And then getting those professional referrals, getting those Google reviews that help you kind of do less marketing, but still get more booked over time. Because ultimately what I want you to be able to do is do a little bit of the business side, but still have a booked practice because you've built this large and loyal client base. And so that's ultimately what it allows you to do. As you're hearing, you get lifetime access to it. So I've got people who have been in the program and they'll refer back or they use a new resource for like 6 or 7 years. But then there's also access to me beyond just the course content and the templates and the scripts. You get access to me in the members community. You have access to coaching if that feels helpful, and bi-weekly calls so that it becomes a really supportive community as well, where you always feel like you have someone in your corner that you can email or, go jump into the group. Because I don't know about you, being an entrepreneur can be a lonely world, right? When you're just doing your thing and you're like, is this right? I have no idea. So beyond getting the actual step-by-steps, I think it's really nice to have that sounding board and community. And I've been doing this now like since 2017 or 2018. I moved online with this program. And it's like my baby. I absolutely love working with the practitioners in it. And honestly, like maintaining connections with them for many years. Like the fact that I still chat with you, like it like fills me up. It is exactly what I love.
Yeah, no, oh, so many great things there. Just you describing the program where that sounding board is nice because it is lonely. I'm sorry, when you're a solo entrepreneur, like even when I am on days that I'm seeing clients, most of the time they don't talk to me, which I love. Like if a client wants to talk to me during a session, during a massage, during a reflexology, whatever, great, I will chat with them. It's up to them if they want a quiet session or a talkative one. As a child and youth care worker and addiction counselor, I also recognize that a lot of times people see these sessions as time for them to unload and just get it out because I'm someone they don't know. I'm someone that they know. I still have confidentiality where it still isn't going to go any further than the two of us. And they just let it all out. So I have, one of the two, but it's everything's coming at me. And so, I'm not going to anyone with anything. I don't have a sounding board for anything. I don't have real adult communication in my day where it is nice, hey, I'm working on this messaging. I'm working on this website and just posting it to the group and being like, hey, what does this look like? To get that actual feedback of people who, because also let's face, like I've asked my husband before sometimes, but he's not an entrepreneur. He's an office guy through and through, and and which is great. It's fine. But he's not an entrepreneur and he doesn't know what he's looking for.
Or your ideal client.
Yeah, or definitely not my ideal client. So he's just going to be like, yeah, it looks great because it does, like, it looks good, but he doesn't know anything beyond that. So it's nice to be able to talk to other entrepreneurs who just get it.
Yeah.
They just get it and in the same boat and just supporting everybody. So yeah, that's great thing.
And gaining ideas from each other as well. It's like someone will say something and they're like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. Like I'm going to go into my community and do the same thing because there are so many people out there needing care and everyone's in different locations. Like there's no competition. There is so much demand for health and wellness services. So it's amazing that everyone can kind of support each other. And then obviously I can be there to support too, because I think acknowledging what you don't know is very important and getting sort of like expert advice and feedback. Because you get in your own world sometimes and you're like, this looks amazing. And then, someone else looks at it and they point something out and you're like, oh yeah, how did I not even realize I didn't say what I even do or something, Yeah, so it's a wonderful program. It's a wonderful community. I really love it. I love when we share wins and people are telling me they've made these great connections or they've hit new milestones, had their busiest weeks. It fuels me. And I came off my version of a mat leave, and I was literally just like itching to get back. So yeah, this has actually been nice because I'm sort of coming off my mat leave even as we're chatting, and so it's this is like getting me very excited.
Great, great. So if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
You know what? I think the best way, there's two ways I'll suggest. One, if you want to learn kind of the behind the scenes of how we booked our own health and wellness practice in 4.5 months, how I teach others to do it, you can certainly go. I've got a free masterclass. That's just www.katematheson.com/fully booked. But also, if you ever want to just reach out, you can jump into Instagram. I'm always kind of checking my DMs in there, and that's just at Matheson Co. I'm always happy to chat, answer questions, give feedback in that as well.
Awesome. And that's all going to be in the show notes also about where to connect with you, all of that. So if you're looking for that, just kind of scroll down into the show notes and you will see it. Awesome. If you could leave one last tip for our listeners, what would it be?
It will be look at your assets, right? Look at your low-hanging fruit. We often have things available to us that we overlook, whether it's your network, your client base, and your email list, your personality, your expertise. We have so many strengths and assets, and we're often like looking outside of them to be doing something else. I guarantee you have some assets available to you, and if you just start tapping into those in a really easy, streamlined way, you'll realize that you can build momentum a lot faster, right? Working with your strengths. And jump on some of the foundational stuff we talked about today. That's very, very important.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and chatting today. I'm sure our listeners can start implementing some of these, like you said, these little easy things and which can have big impacts though. So thank you so much. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. I'm Nikki here with Kate, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you for spending your time with us here at Vetiver Vibes. This episode was brought to you by Essentria, a leading online aromatherapy school. Don't forget to check out some of our free resources at www.schoolofessentria.com.
If you love this episode or you got a lot of value out of it, please make sure you share it with someone in your community who you think would enjoy it too. If you haven't already subscribed or reviewed the show yet, you can go on over to your preferred streaming platform and hit subscribe, then leave a review. This is the best way to help support us, and we appreciate it. Email us with a screenshot of your review, and we will send you a free guided meditation as our way to say thank you.
This podcast is for information purposes only. We are certified clinical aromatherapists and holistic health professionals. If you have a medication concern, please refer to your health team. Everyone's health is unique to themselves, so the topics and suggestions stated may or may not apply directly to you.